Hello.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good.
Let's see. You got video capability?
Is my video not on? Oh,
No.
okay. I guess I'll click the button.
There you go. All right, we got it working. This is the first time I've initiated a Zoom call. I've been on the receiving end a few times, but
Okay, yeah. I have not initial. Well, no, I have not. I've gone live once on online, but that was about it. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's been a while since I've been live.
yeah, yeah. I set up the Zoom and I haven't used it.
Well, I'm wanting to give this a try, and I figured it would be good for us to kind of feel it out together. I noticed you've been doing a little bit of YouTubing yourself there. I saw a couple of your videos.
That's cool. Yeah, I started a family channel, just the kind of memories with my kids. So I'd have memories of growing up and just different things we do and just something we can look back at.
Yeah, I kind of did something similar in a way. I got started actually. I realized one of my kids who liked to play a lot of video games was already putting his stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I'm either going to have to cut that off and put a stop to it. But since I really didn't know what he was doing and, he didn't really try to do anything wrong, I thought, well, let's look at this together. If you want to share your stuff on YouTube, I like some games too. Let's give it a try, and we'll see what we can do. And I started to learn about it that way, and just like making it a thing for me and my stepson to be able to do to connect some.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He kind of got bored with how much work was involved in it and just kept playing games, and I got good at doing the YouTube thing. I haven't done the live streaming since I was doing gaming though, but I mean, I've done live streams that went several hours. It'll be interesting if I can get back to that. I just haven't worked it up in this diet yet.
Yeah.
I don't even like to call it a diet. By the way, I'm having it doesn't like the cup because it's the color of the seat.
That's funny. I was like blur in the background. Yeah.
I'm having hot water with a little Soleil water in it. It still says
Okay.
coffee though, so I feel like I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah. Well, I just got some water with some minerals in it.
Same basic thing.
Mhm.
Well, let's see. I got some questions I was gonna try to ask you and maybe get this set up properly. I really am stumbling through this, like I'm sure you are in some ways too, as you get through having your own channel. It can be challenging coming up with how you're going to present everything. And I don't know if you've been like me, but I've been amazed at the response to some of the things that I've heard or said. And
Yeah.
then when I thought I put out something, I said they're going to love this, and then it didn't get any response. I'm like, I have no idea what they're going to listen to, what they like to hear.
It's been overwhelming, honestly, because I don't feel like I inspire people, in my regular life. Maybe some people would say that, but I put this stuff out. I was like, that resonates a lot of people because a lot of people are struggling with so many different things, and they're like, man, it was like I just like seeing someone else do it or that can do it, and it just seems to resonate. I feel uncomfortable with it sometimes because it's like, well, that's a tough responsibility, you
Yeah.
know. It's a tough responsibility, but I know the interview is not supposed to be about you, but I was like, oh, I'm going to change my diet, and I happened to find you on YouTube, and I was like, let's watch this video. My kids watch it with me, like you going through all that time, eating the lion diet, and I was like, it's possible. And once you know it's possible that you don't die,
Right.
you can actually thrive instead of just survive. You're like, hey, now I know it's possible. Now I know I can do it. And I think that kind of stuff resonates with people just because once they see it's possible, that they're like, you know what, I could do that.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a shock for me, even though I started recording it earlier because I had been through a similar diet before.
Mhm.
But I went into it with kind of the same thought. I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. And
Yeah,
it just it took off a lot faster than I thought it would.
that's
So
cool.
tell me about you already told me about the channel. So yeah, I guess we'll just do with a basic introduction about yourself. How did you find out about it? I mean, it wasn't my I don't know if it was or not. I've had some people say that my video was the first one they saw regarding it, and some people say it was, early, but curiously, how did you find out about it to begin with? How'd you get started on
Well,
this way of eating?
I just honestly, I saw Jordan Peterson
Mm.
talking about it. And I'm like, well, that's, you could eat just beef. He's like, and he's like, this is a nightmare. People, at functions, just eating meat and having some health problems. I was essentially told by my doctor that I have type 2 diabetes. And then I started researching type 2 diabetes and I found that it could be reversible. I'm like, well, why wouldn't my doctor tell me it's reversible instead of just sending me a message saying, hey, you should get on a statin and I should and some type 2, some diabetic, some insulin, some pills. And I was like, well, why? Well, I just did 5 minutes of research and I saw it was reversible.
Right.
Like, well, maybe I should try to reverse this because it's possible. And I've been struggling with dieting for years. Just as the older I get, it was easier to put on weight. People always told me like I hold it well. At the most I was 277, but I've moved furniture for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've done pastoral rows, but on top of that, I've done it by trying to earn funds for pastoral missions through moving furniture, cleaning out
Right.
people's houses. So, I earned big meals. I earned every single one of them, and and I fluctuated, but I've tried to get better the older I got. And really, I kind of just did the research on reversing type 2 diabetes, low carbs, low sugars. And so I found I heard Jordan Peterson talk about it. I'm like, well, that's low carb, that's low sugar. And so I just, and I tried keto, but I'm like, well, I'm not good at math. When it comes to the macros and stuff like that. I'm a busy man. I got 8 kids. It's a miracle that they're not yelling right now.
Eating is a hard thing to fit into our days. It's become easier because we made everything so TV dinner ready,
Yeah.
And I think we grew up in a lifestyle of that. And you and I both suffered from the side effects of it. So it's good to hear you found out about that. So what got you looking at Jordan Peterson? You probably, like me, heard something he said, and you probably heard his name a few times. I don't know. I'm missing a guess. You heard his name a few times, and then you said, well, I'll just check one out. And got hooked like I did.
You essentially just hear the clips of this guy. I just heard some clips and just, scrolling on the social media. And I was like, talk about free speech and that kind of stuff. And it was like, the way he talked, I was like, okay, my brain needs to get bigger, but it's just one of those things. It just resonated with me. And so I just happened to see that clip about him with Joe Rogan talking about meat. And I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I had heard a little bit from like some homesteading channels that I follow, that people were doing some challenges on those channels also. And I'm like, well, this sounds weird. This sounds, you could just eat meat, because my mom never told me that.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know that you could survive, but then I saw people survive and thrive, and I was like, maybe I can.
Yeah, that was the same thing for me, because even though I had been on a low carb diet before, I didn't think you could do only meat. I didn't think that was the thing. I thought you had to get some nutrients from somewhere else. I don't know, up until now, up before the diet, I didn't look up to see how many nutrients were in meat as opposed to vegetables. But now I found out that meat is far more nutrient dense than vegetables. But I learned from Atkins' diet that if I didn't take a bunch of vitamins, I'd run out of energy real quick. And even if I did it for a couple of days, it would zap me to the point that I was motionless. Turns out it was electrolytes. I didn't know about that till Mikhaila pointed it out.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's when I shared it with everybody else, because I said, this is the key. I couldn't figure out what it was about, because I remember feeling if I didn't pound vitamins, this wasn't going to work. And I didn't want to take a bunch of supplements either.
Yeah, well, like, who can afford that? Really?
Right. The meat. I was actually going to get to something talking about cost here in a moment, but what would you say with regard to the social aspects of this way of eating? Have you had any difficulties eating away from home or with others in general?
It comes up in conversation like, uh, I'm like, so you're only eating meat? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I just tell people, don't cater to me. I don't need you to cater to me. If you want to, that's fine. But I'm not gonna, don't change your lifestyle. I'm just trying to get healthy right now, and I'm not sure this is gonna work. Right. I'm just gonna try this, and I would like your support. And if you think I'm weird, I mean, add it to the list. But I wanted to try, I wanted to try it out. And so I've been to some events and I was able to like, I broke my diet at this men's conference I went to because I ate meat with seasoning on it after like 30 days. And I felt like I was cheating, but I was like, I'm just eating hamburger patty and they season it. Just calm down, man. But I felt like I was cheating because I was trying so hard
Right.
to do it the right way. And I wanted to eliminate a lot of things from my diet, but my mother-in-law and my mom are like, "You're just eating meat." I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Can you do that?" I'm like, "We'll see."
Yeah, everybody's afraid. I get a lot of that.
And so I think if I wasn't, I don't know. I think when I was younger, I might have struggled with that more. But I'm at the age of my life that I just, I don't want to say I speak my mind, but I just kind of lay it out there as plain as I can and say I'm just trying this and try to at least um earn them over to like care about me because I'm trying to care about myself.
Yeah.
And usually people are like, "Oh, okay." And then people are like, "Hey, you want some chips?" And I'm like, "I don't eat chips."
Yeah.
I'm like, because people are so conditioned to just be hospitable and to offer food to people. I'm like, "No, I'm not eating cake. What are you talking about?
Right.
Don't you even
Right.
know me?" But yeah,
Do you,
I try to be jovial about it.
Yeah, I run into some difficulties with it too. So I was just curious how that worked out for some other people. Because I even run into when I make videos about how it's difficult to juggle the social aspects,
Mhm.
especially in a business situation. I don't want to
Yeah.
call attention to my diet. I wouldn't do it if I was a vegan. I wouldn't want to
Mhm.
call attention to my diet. But in our case, I think it's even stranger because I have to eat at a restaurant. They think to accommodate vegan, but they don't think to accommodate carnivore.
Yeah, the
So
restaurants I've had some waitresses like just the side of meat. I'm like, yeah, just the side of meat. They're like, what else? I'm like, well, can I have a side of butter? I'll dip my steak in the butter. They're like, I was like, it's grass fed, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'll dip my steak in the butter, and probably people are like, this is crazy, but hey,
yeah.
I've I'm becoming, I don't want to say like I'm a loud advocate of it, but it has changed my life enough that I'm like, you guys, I'm like, I'm not afraid of it at this point. I'm like, well, it works for me.
Many times I hear complaints about how the cost of this way of eating makes it impossible to sustain. Have you noticed an increase or a decrease in your overall spending since starting this way of eating?
I would probably say an increase. And that's because I'm going to the store personally. Usually my wife does most of the meal planning and prepping Monday through Saturday. I'm just in charge of Sundays. So my family's had hamburgers tonight while I had some sous vide chuck steak. And then I also had some hamburger patties. But I would say it has increased in some ways. I haven't really crunched the numbers, but I find myself like, oh, let's just stop by the butcher shop on the way home and see if they got anything on sale. Oh,
Yeah.
go by here and see if they got anything reduced for sale. And so I've kind of got a stockpile, right? So hopefully the power doesn't go out because I got a bunch of meat I'm in stockpile. And if I see it on
Yeah.
sale, I buy it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought about that a lot with all this talk about energy issues coming up soon.
yeah, but the one thing that I was realizing the other day is I haven't had a Red Bull in 6 months. I would have a few of those a week at least,
Yeah,
right?
at
So
$4 a pop, right? Or
right,
more.
and or more. And so if I really sit down and I think about what I'm not spending my money on when it comes to other types of foods, I think it's comparable. But I'm not a big snacker anyway, never have been,
Mm.
So I like big meals. And so now I can eat big meals and still and not feel guilty.
Well, that's definitely a plus. I certainly enjoy the idea of having a change in diet not mean that I've got to suffer through every bite.
Yeah, and when you work for a living, you don't want to be caught depleted, right? I worry about that sometimes with my job. Like
Yes.
I just, you have good days and you have bad days. As you age, it changes too. But I don't want to be like just totally depleted, going to work, and just sweating and like being super hungry and eat like the last night I was on, I was eating bananas and nuts and I eat that and it didn't help nothing. I was still hungry.
Yeah.
Now I like if I really, there was a time I was dehydrating my own meat and just making my own jerky and bringing it with me just in case when I first started. I haven't done that for a while because it doesn't even I'm not as hungry as much, but
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of keep the dehydrated meat stuff for emergency circumstances for more than anything.
Yeah.
It's nice as the people always think it's a snack, but mostly it's just when either I don't have time to cook or I don't feel like cooking or
Mhm.
I'm not able to cook.
Yeah.
Like on the you mentioned checking out the trip that I just made. That was
Yeah.
one of those situations where there was really not a whole lot I could do and stay on track for where I had to be for that meeting if I didn't
Yeah.
have something handy that I could eat anywhere.
Yeah, so
So
there's that. I thought of something like because I did this on a camping trip. Is I took a bunch of a chuck roast I got from the butcher, and I have a sous vide machine where I just vacuum seal it.
mhm.
So I, cook that in water until the perfect temperature, and essentially I was able to bring it and just slice it like roast beef. Everyone's eating
Yeah.
hot dogs. I'm just eating meat that I was grilling over the fire, but it was when you cook it that way, it pasteurizes it, so like there's not a bunch of bacteria. You don't have to worry about bacteria and stuff like that as much,
On
which is
sous vide.
yeah. So I just had some nice medium rare roast beef that I could grill over the fire and it worked pretty well. And I've actually just did on road trips. I just had a bag sitting there, not even in a cooler, just eating on the road trip. But
Is it the sous vide bag that it was in that you're leaving it in, or are you taking it out and then preparing it in some other way?
I would take it out and just put in like a Ziploc bag or a container or something like that.
Okay. I was just curious how you did that. I
I mean,
tried
I
sous
have.
vide for a while. It was rough on me.
Oh, was it? Well, I haven't died yet, but I'm just,
It
you
wasn't
just,
the food was rough. I think it was just adapting my brain to cooking with water and all these extra different utensils. And I said,
oh yeah. So it just, you vacuum sealed and it just circulates. So it gets to that specific temperature. And I do that like when I go to work, I'll come back from like come home and it's like time to eat. I just cut that bag open, throw the meat on the pan and just sear it. Done.
do you
I
use
got,
something real deep to keep it in? Like a cooler or something? Is that what you're cooking the sous vide in, or is it a container that you
it's a
got with you?
container that has like a little heat element that circulates the water, it keeps it moving so it doesn't like
Oh,
it
so
doesn't
yours is like a whole tub sous vide,
yeah.
not one of these sticks like the one I have.
Yeah, well, it's a stick that goes in a tub and
Okay.
I think the circulation makes it so it doesn't go over the temperature that you want it at.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just throw it in there. I'm like, well, there's breakfast tomorrow, there's lunch, there's dinner if I need it. And it's just in there ready to go. And there's recipes, but sometimes I just simplified it and just threw it in there and you know,
Well,
like
I don't want to get too lost on sous vide. I gotta admit, it was one of those ones where I tried it a few times and I
yeah,
thought this is a lot of extra effort and I'm not getting that much out of it, but I'll
yeah.
probably revisit it someday.
Well, I'm not an expert. I just, that's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I found the air fryer worked good because it was simple, and that's the thing I kind of wanted to stress to everybody is keep it simple. This diet's got enough barriers, I think, with the social difficulties that you're going to run into and the availability of food. If you can keep the cooking of it as simple as possible, it'll probably make things a lot easier on you and everybody that you deal with as well.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges you've noticed that I haven't asked about?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're going to get to the positive question here in a moment.
I mean, there's nothing that sticks out to me right away that I think has been a negative. Because in the light of the positives, I haven't noticed any real problem. honestly. I mean, I guess the one was like, I had to get you, this is weird, but I had to get used to not pooping every day.
Right. No, that's not weird. That, believe me, and you're among friends when it comes to that one.
Yeah.
That was an unusual adjustment as
So,
well.
so I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Is there something wrong? You know, and I'd eat a bunch of beef and like I'd feel a little bit heavy, and I'm like, okay. And then I'd
Yeah.
finally, it's time to go. And I'm like, well, that wasn't that much. So, but, you know, but then I realized I wasn't eating enough
Right.
and I wasn't eating enough
Well,
fat.
I think it was a mixture of that, and
Yeah.
also just the fact that we're not used to our bodies saying, okay, I can use all of this.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
use it all, so I'm going to put it where it goes.
Not
And
just
instead of saying
1%.
this is just garbage, we don't need any of this.
Yeah, that's true. That's, I mean, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a question mark, because that's one thing you probably get a lot of comments on is, what about, how do you deal with the constipation? Like, they would, I know, I guess people have had some experience with
Oh,
constipation and they blamed it on the meat.
hmm.
And I can understand why, because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, protein will cause that. I said, well, it hasn't caused it in 19 months.
Hmm.
Uh, I've had other health issues that have come and gone, but I think that had a lot to do with the 48 years prior to starting this diet.
Okay. Yeah.
That's some of that stuff comes up from. All right. How about the benefits you've experienced since starting a carnivore style lifestyle?
So, you know, we talked about simplicity. Um, and who was it? Was that Steve Jobs that wore like the same clothes every day? Uh, at work, I wear like this black V-neck shirt, and every single day, people start making fun of me after a while. It's like, you just wear the same shirt every day. I'm like, well, I just buy them in bulk and I go to work in this shirt and I don't have to think about it. And the diet kind of been like, it was kind of like the black shirt of of food for me because it made everything so simple with a
Yeah.
little bit of thinking ahead, a little bit of planning, not much. I was able to just simplify my life when it came to my food. And to the point that it really didn't bother my family either. Like my wife and my kids, they didn't really have to cater to me. I did my own thing. And,
Right.
you know, at first, I think my wife was like, oh, this is weird. You know, aren't you supposed to cook for your husband? I'm like, don't worry, I got this, you know, like, so I had that benefit. And I also went like on a starvation diet a couple years ago and I lost some weight. You know, I was just made it up. You know, I was eating a lot of fruits and nuts and I lost some weight, but I was so tired and I was so depleted. I did have, it was nice to have the weight off, but by the end of like the summer, I was like, I just need to eat food. And so I packed it on quick and but on this diet, I haven't got depleted the same. I feel stronger. And so that's been nice. I've been able to, you know, exercise more and
Yeah.
feel actually, I don't, trust me, I don't exercise that much, but as I got older, I know it's good to keep moving for my body and my brain and physical labor jobs. I'm like, I'm gonna try to get stronger. And you know, I got bad shoulders and hands, but I was able to get much stronger on this diet. And I don't know if it's what the protein or not being hungry, but one of the main benefits I always say I'm 44 now, but I guarantee I might be able to beat up my 24-year-old self right now. I think I got to take them.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing. I could take me at the best shape in my life before this. There's no doubt. So I agree with you there. How about the mental side? Notice any positives mentally changed?
100%, yes, and even my wife could attest to this. So I don't want to say I'm bipolar, but I've had highs and lows in my life. I get bouts of depression, and they've been less. And they're not. I'm pretty. Um, how would I say? I'm even. I'm even a lot more. I don't have mood swings like I used to.
Right.
You know, I still have days where I feel some brain fog and it's hard to get going or hard to wake up. But for the most part, when it comes to my attitude, I've been way more even under a lot of stress. And so that's been great too.
I can totally sympathize with that one. And I
Mm,
think this is one subject that I need to hit on some more, is
mm,
dealing with that change, because it's something I haven't been comfortable discussing with people. I've mentioned before that I had anger issues before. I haven't talked a
Yeah.
lot about anxiety issues, but you know, it was
Mhm.
so funny. My pastor this morning was talking about anxiety and how that fear is what leads to that anger, because we get afraid of not trusting because we see that storm around us just raging on, and
Mhm.
we're trying to do what we're supposed to do. At least this is my perspective, is that I'm a man trying to make my way in the world to provide for my family and do what needs to be done. And I see on every side, it seems like the pillars of society are collapsing around us. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how am I gonna make sense of this world? And it was
Mhm.
really starting to affect me with the anxiety side, and I think it was what was pumping up my anger too. And then on top of that, the I think that affected the gut issues. But
Okay.
the anxiety itself might have helped cause the gut pain, and then the lectins and the vegetables and all that stuff that got in through there because it was the leaky gut. I think it all plays a role. I think the anxiety and the fear are a big part of what we were dealing with, and the diet might have helped us to tone it down just enough to get those things under control. And then the other side that I wanted to hear from you on was the spiritual side.
Okay.
And I think they kind of tie together with what we were talking about. But how would you say it's affected you in your spiritual walk, if at all?
Um, I mean, it's always good to be a lot more even, when
Yeah.
it comes to your spiritual life. I share some of the stuff on my YouTube channel. I try to be myself as much as possible. And I know
Hmm.
religion offends people and everyone has their flavor and all those types of things. But just, I try to share my story in that. And when it comes to the spiritual stuff, um, this has been great for me. I mean, it's been great for me because I've been trying and not hiding, really. There's things on my list that I was hiding from, and one of them was my health for sure. And so, kind of trying to be in charge of that and be more self-disciplined in it, which discipline is a spiritual exercise, really. Um,
It's one of
is
the fruits
really
of the
helped.
spirit.
It really helped. It's really helped my confidence, and not just in myself. I don't know. It's really helping me just realize that God loves me and wants good things for me, and He wants good things for other people. And because what I'm seeing through, like the comments is, I see so many people struggling with these things,
Yeah.
and so I mean, just through that, it has invigorated me because I like helping people that are hurting, and
Yeah.
if I could give them a little bit of good encouragement, teach them to be thankful for what they have or whatever, it really helps. And so I just took a step of faith in this diet to try something, and God has showed up in it. And a lot of times it came through people I talked to in comments, but even, my wife just said, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to try the diet for 30 days." And so I'm inspiring people spiritually, you know, and I mean, I guess they have to tell me so I really know, but I heard someone said once that said, um, preach, 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 preach. And if you have to, use words.
I've heard that one.
And so that's what I kind of doing on this diet. I'm kind of using it as um, a way to like have seen that I've been changing. They ask what I'm doing, and I kind of use it as an opportunity just to introduce myself and say, "Hey," but I'm not like, "You need to go on a diet." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well I tried this because my health was bad,"
Right.
and you can see their wheels spinning, and I could go every which way and chase rabbits on these conversations, but um, I've done a lot of outreach and pastoral roles for the last almost 20 years. So, but I'm also a husband and a father with 8 kids. So I don't know. Like I got a lot of responsibility as a spiritual leader, and being healthy helps. I
Yeah.
think it actually helps. When yesterday I was at my community group, and the lady was like, "Oh," she saw me just stand there and put my shoes back on. without having to sit down or bend over,
Right.
and wincing because my back would, because I could do one foot, but I could never do my left foot. And yesterday I just put on my shoes.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about that today.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that inspires people spiritually too, because they see that I'm trying and doing something.
Right.
Right. But I'm in a position like now I'm super thankful. I'm super thankful that I'm here and I'm not where I was. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go back. Like, and I'm not like fearful about it. I just, man, it has made a real difference. And spiritually, definitely.
Yeah. And I curious this if you kind of see it this way. For me, it's because I'm constantly watching what's going in here. I also watch what I put in here and what I put in here, because that seems to make a big difference in my mental and spiritual health as well.
Yeah, input equals output.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've only heard it all my life, but somehow it makes sense when you start to apply it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how that's revelation needs illumination.
Yes. Yes.
And once it gets illuminated, you're like, oh yeah, now I know. Now I can teach that too.
I've asked the questions I wanted to ask, and this is my very first try at this, so hopefully it won't look as bad as it probably will a couple of years from now.
Okay.
But I'm thankful to have you as the first one.
Man,
and
yeah, huge blessing for me. I thought you put that video out. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I'm just trying to take steps of faith, man.
Well, I think that us reaching out to each other will be helpful to other people too, because the one thing that you might have run into when you're doing your channel is you kind of feel like you're talking to nobody. You're talking, but you get the comments back. But when I'm doing the back and forth, it seems to be a lot better. And I think sometimes that's better for them too. So I'm hoping that you got more out of it by being able to talk directly with me. And I'm hoping they're going to get more out of it by being able to hear us talk with each other. And maybe this will become a thing that'll encourage more people to not only try to get healthier, but maybe to try to document their story and to spread the news so that we can overcome this fog of disinformation about meat being bad for us.
Yeah. So today is actually my 180 day on this diet. So 6 months, right? Today is actually the day. And I came out with a video for it, and I just had this thing. I was like, do you know what? More people need to document their process and of them just going on a health journey, because there needs to be as many voices as possible saying, hey, you can try, and you can do better, and you can eat healthier. And in that video, I read a comment from a lady who was like 61 and telling about all her crazy health things and all the things that have gone in her life and how much healthier she is. And she said, you're young and you got good thing you did it now. And I'm like, I started crying because I was like, I feel like I waited too long. I feel like I lost years of my life. I felt like I really lost years of my life being less than I could have been. And I was like, weight's not everything. It's not everything, but the trying, not just feeling like you're hiding and being able to put it out and just try. I mean, it's been very healing for me, and I want other people to experience that type of healing.
Well, me too. And honestly, I think we're going to help a lot of people just by what we're doing with this and what we're doing with our channels. And I'll be praying for you on that. Is there any questions you have for me while we got about 4 minutes left?
How's the weather in Florida?
Well, there's a hurricane heading this way, but hey, the Dolphins won today, so I was happy.
That's good. I mean, I don't know. The questions are tough, but I'll tell you right now, my 13-year-old daughter actually was with me when I watched that first video from you.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're having a call with him. She was just like, this is crazy. You're talking to someone from the internet. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I bet we have a lot more in common than we'll realize, just, fathers and husbands and Christian men, and that have, tried to get healthier and just gone on a journey. Yeah.
I think it is interesting in my lifetime. I'm only 5 years older than you, but so I think we kind of seen a lot of the same things as far as the changes over time. and
I'll call you
how
Uncle
that
Dante.
sounds good. I'll be Uncle Dante. I've been called that before by people that weren't my nieces and nephews.
Okay.
But is how a lot of these especially stars who are willing to talk about their real story and not stick to some narrative, people who were stars before are starting to come out and share some of their stuff. And you're finding a lot of these guys are going to YouTube and becoming YouTubers, and then they don't even have as big of a following as people who started on YouTube, and yet they have movie credentials, and they're not getting as big of a following, but they have this, like for instance, Jim Brewer. I don't know if you remember Jim Brewer. He was Goat
From
Boy
Half
on
Baked.
Saturday Night Live and Half Baked and all that. Yeah.
That was
And
my pre-Christian days.
I didn't really like him back in the day. I thought it was funny with the Goat Boy thing, but other than that, I was like, this guy, you know what? He reminds me too much of me, to be honest with you. It's the problems I have with him. But I thought, God, he's just a wacky, goofy character. But then he started saying his mind lately, and now he has his own thing on YouTube. But I realize he's no different than I am.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But what is different is people who decide, I'm not going to let money or power or influence stop me from doing a good thing for others, doing unto others as I would want them to do unto me. And that is a rare thing in Hollywood. So we grew up seeing only people, for the most part, who are willing to sell their soul for anything. And now we see a lot of folks coming up on YouTube, and some of them find out they got to make some decisions about how they're gonna handle this amount of notoriety.
Yeah.
But I think if you treat it like you said you were, and it's definitely the way I look at it, is this is a responsibility. I've got people willing to tune in and listen to what I have to say. I better damn sure show up and give them something that's going to be encouraging and useful, and not just about making it about me. So it's been an exciting opportunity for me to not only do this, but to meet you and to be able to talk about your story and hopefully share it with others and encourage them.
That's awesome. Yeah. And don't be surprised when people are like, oh, that guy looks like Chris Pratt, because I get it all the time.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Well, brother, it's been good talking to you. There's only about a minute left, so I didn't want to. I hate that I got to even mention that in the video. Again, this is the first time I've done this, and I just want to make sure I'm doing it all the right way for everybody.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I'm just so thankful that you reached out to me, and God bless you. And hey, let's just,
we may do it again sometime.
Oh, well, let's do it again. Yeah, let's do it again. We can definitely do it again.
All right. God bless you, brother.
God bless.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
That's it. Yeah. Oh,
I don't know how to stop and all this smile.
Huh?
I don't know how to stop and all this smile.
Yeah, just keep smiling.